Would you stand up for a veteran being wronged? Here's how one young man turned a tense airport terminal into a movement. The crowded terminal at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport buzzed with the usual hum of rolling suitcases, distant announcements, and low conversations among passengers. Near Gate C-23 stood a Marine veteran named Thomas, accompanied by his loyal German shepherd, Max. It was hard to miss them. Thomas, in his mid-40s, wore a weathered leather jacket and a cap proudly embroidered with Semper Fi. Max, with a service dog vest on, sat calmly by his side, his deep brown eyes scanning the crowd, ever vigilant. The bond between them was unspoken, but deep. Thomas wasn't just another traveler. After years of service overseas, including witnessing unimaginable horrors, he had returned home to face the challenges of readjusting to civilian life. Max had become his lifeline, trained to detect and help manage the anxiety and panic attacks that often plagued Thomas. Max wasn't just a dog. He was a protector. It wasn't easy for Thomas to fly, but Max made it manageable. Together, they were booked on Flight 172 to Los Angeles, where Thomas was scheduled to speak at a veterans advocacy event. As the boarding process began, Thomas approached the gate agent with his ticket and Max's service animal documentation. Instead of the usual routine acknowledgement, the agent's brow furrowed as she scanned her tablet. "I'm sorry, sir," she said, her voice tentative. "There's an issue with bringing your dog onto this flight." Thomas blinked in confusion. "Issue? He's a registered service animal. I have the papers right here." The agent glanced nervously at the growing line behind Thomas. "It's a new airline policy. Some animals aren't allowed on board even with documentation." Thomas's voice grew firmer. "This dog isn't a pet. He's a service animal. Do you understand what that means? He's here for my medical needs." "I'm just following protocol, sir," the agent stammered. Max, sensing Thomas's agitation, gently nudged his leg with his nose, offering the calm reassurance only he could provide. Still, Thomas's patience was running out. "That's not good enough," he said. "I serve this country. I didn't ask for these struggles, but I'm managing the best I can, and you're telling me I can't board because of some arbitrary rule." The tension in the air was palpable, and passengers began to take notice. An older man in a baseball cap muttered to his wife, "That man fought for this country, and now they're giving him grief over his dog." The agent, visibly flustered, glanced at her supervisor who had just arrived on the scene. "Sir," the supervisor said, his tone rehearsed and measured, "we understand your concern, but the airline's updated policies are clear. We can't make exceptions." "Exceptions?" Thomas's voice rose, calm but commanding. "This isn't about exceptions. This is about rights. You don't get to decide that my service dog isn't valid because of a policy you barely understand." Max stood close, his body pressed against Thomas, grounding him. More passengers began to chime in, outraged at what they were witnessing. A young woman holding a boarding pass said, "If it were a pet, fine. But that's a service dog." A man in his 30s began recording, his phone held high. "People need to see this," he muttered. "This is ridiculous." The supervisor hesitated but was losing his grip on the situation. "We can try to rebook you on another flight," he said, his voice defensive. "That's not the point," Thomas snapped. "I'm not just some guy with a dog. Max is why I can even step foot in an airport. Rebooking doesn't solve anything. This is about how people like me are treated." Just as the situation seemed on the verge of spiraling, a calm yet firm voice cut through the growing tension. "What's going on here?" the voice asked. Everyone turned, and standing among them was a tall young man who seemed familiar. He stepped closer, his clean-cut appearance and steady presence standing out against the chaotic scene. It took only a moment for the realization to spread among the crowd. "That's Baron Trump," someone whispered. Baron, carrying a small backpack and a boarding pass, moved toward the supervisor. His voice was calm but commanding. "Doesn't meet the requirements?" Baron said, addressing the supervisor directly. "This man is a Marine veteran, and that is a service dog. What part of this seems okay to you?" The crowd began to murmur in agreement. A woman spoke up. "Exactly. He's not asking for anything unreasonable." Baron continued, his words cutting through the supervisor's attempts to maintain control. "I'm pretty sure federal law protects service animals, regardless of airline policies. Are you seriously willing to break the law over this?" The supervisor hesitated, clearly rattled by the crowd's mounting support for Thomas. Baron's voice remained steady but firm. "This isn't just about